Thank you. Please just remain standing while the chaplain says a few words. Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, welcome. Welcome especially to new councillors and to this annual meeting part 2 of the council. The very first business to be dealt with will be to install our new deputy mayor. Councillor Onnalee Cubitt here was elected to this post in her absence at last week's mayor-making meeting, having been proposed by Councillor Sven Goderson and seconded by Councillor Janet Westbrook in Councillor Potter's absence. So we'll now have a brief intermission whilst the Deputy Mayor leaves the chamber with the Chief Executive and she is invested with a badge of office. And then on their return, Councillor Cubitt will read and sign her declaration of acceptance. So you can talk amongst yourselves for a moment. Okay, ready to proceed. Thank you.
Councillor Onley-Cubitt, will you please read and accept the Deputy Mayor's declaration of acceptance of office?
I shall. I, Onley-Cubitt, having been elected to the office of Deputy Mayor of the Basingstoke and Deane Borough Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. Thank you. Can I have
Sorry, do you want to? Oh, no, I'm going to do that. I was taking care of the pen.
keep with the pen? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was said with great conviction. Really good. So we move on to the business of the evening. First of all, to receive apologies for absence. Councillor Bound.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to give apologies for Councillor Tristan Robinson.
Thank you very much. Councillor James.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Apologies for Ron Hussey.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors McCormick, Cooper and Regan.
Thank you very much. Are there any interest regarding items on the agenda that members wish to declare? No? Thank you. Minutes of the meeting held on the 28th of March this year, pages 7 to 18 of these papers. Is everyone happy that they are a correct account of the proceedings? Agreed? Thank you. I'll sign them in a moment. Oh, right, and now announcements. I have got one or two, and I'm going to stand for these, but you can remain seated. Right, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who came to last week's mayor making and helped to make it such a good occasion. At least it was from my point of view anyway. We have an excellent team here to ensure that everything runs smoothly, and I just want to thank them, especially, of course, Zoe, who is absolutely brilliant. And all agreed that the catering, as always, was superbly done by Danielle and her team from BCOT. So thank you, everyone, officers, and everyone else who took part. And I was very moved by the nice things that were said about me, especially from Terry and Jane. Thank you very much indeed. It gives me quite a lot to live up to. I hope I don't come across as too nice, so you think I'll be a pushover in the meetings. So those who know me well will know that I believe in a balance of good, robust debate, disagreements, whatever, on one side, but balanced with respect and camaraderie. And if we can balance those two things over the next year, I will be truly delighted, and I'm sure it's everybody's aim as well. The next thing I just want to make a note to say is that one or two people have asked, yes, the retiring mayor, or the retired mayor, the former Mayor Councillor Keating, did send a message of congratulations to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex on the birth of their baby, Archie. Just one other message to you, just so that you know what I'm getting up to. Just want to mention that this year marks the 50th anniversary of our coupling, our twinning, with Alençon in France. And to celebrate this, Andy and I have been invited to a weekend of Britishness in Alençon. We'll be leaving in just about a week's time. And one or two other groups are going, including the Overton Choral Society, who will be entertaining us. So we're really looking forward to that. The programme is absolutely packed. I'm exhausted looking at it. I just wasn't too sure about one item on the Friday evening. It said fish and chips, which is fine, and then it said karaoke, which isn't so fine. I've never done that in my life. All I can say is that we promise that we won't disgrace the good name of Basingstoke and Deane that evening. And by the next council meeting, I will report back all about it, and also visits to and from Oiskirchen, which is coming up as well. Now, do we have any announcements? We have no announcements from the Chief Executive, so I'm going to sit down. And we move to the next item on the agenda, which is an election of the leader of the council for the next 4-year period. Do I have a nomination, please? Councillor Bean.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to nominate Councillor Ken Rattigan as leader of the council. So Ken first came to Basingstoke 20 years ago when his employer, Sun Life of Canada, offered him a job here at its head office. Loving the place so much, he made his home in the borough and has been here ever since. I'm told he can be regularly spotted shopping in Tadley. First elected to Basingstoke and Dean Borough Council to represent the Kingsclear ward in 2006 and served until 2013 when he stood down. In May 2016, he was re-elected to the Kingsclear ward, where he still represents. Ken is also very proud of his two now grown-up sons, one of whom is in the RAF and the other a graphic designer. He also now has 2 young grandchildren and has apparently become an expert in feeding ducks at the park. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's great. Do we have a seconder? Yes, Councillor Capon. Are we all agreed? Agreed? Thank you very much. No dissent? Okay. Right, membership of the Cabinet. This has been circulated on the update and amendment sheet, which you can all look at. I'm sure Councillor Rattigan has been up all night working this one out. Do you want to announce who they are? Yes, thank you.
Thank you, and I'm delighted that I'm leader of this council. I just want to say there are no Conservative ideas, no Labour or Liberal ideas. There are only good and bad ideas, and I hope that we can together make this a better borough. So I just put that out there right now. I'm delighted that so many of the Cabinet have agreed that their jobs should change or alter or be better. And I am delighted to say that as my deputy and the Vice Chair of Cabinet, leading the communities, culture and partnerships alongside me will be Simon Bound. You all know him for his good humour, extravagant shirts and his kindness and knowledge of what officers are doing. So I'm delighted that Simon's agreed to be my deputy. Hayley, we all know, is the Cabinet Member for Environment, and it is a very important role because some of what's underneath her portfolio is about delivery. And I think all of us understand that if we are not delivering great outcomes for our residents, then we would be failing them. So I'm delighted that Hayley has accepted to be in the Cabinet with a portfolio that is mostly what she was doing previously. Hannah Golding, who was on Cabinet previously, has accepted with Robert Tate moving on to sunnier climes or better climes, that she should take the finance and service improvement portfolio, and I'm delighted that she will bring her analytical brain and enthusiasm to that portfolio. John Isaac has been an integral member of the team, and I believe that his vision and his drive, his capacity to take on a huge job within the regeneration and portfolio cabinet position will allow continuity, but also, with my help and support, a bigger, better, brighter Basingstoke. So I'm delighted that John accepted that portfolio. Mark Ruffell, as you all know, has an array of striped suits, but also has a great brain. And at a time where we are going to be revisiting our local plan, I think it's important that we continue to have that drive and that knowledge of what we have within our borough and what we need to improve on and protect. So he will be the Cabinet Member for Planning, Infrastructure and the Natural Environment. I'm glad to say that part of what I will be doing will be combining with many of my Cabinet to be the green champion. I think many of you know I have a passion for our chalk streams and our environment, and I will be a great champion for that alongside the Cabinet members whose portfolios interrupt or across that. Now on to the new Cabinet members and the reasons why I've got them. I will be nice to Tristan tonight because he is not here. It will be a once-off, so please don't show him the film. His portfolio will take on the Cabinet member for homes and families. Even though he doesn't have a family of his own yet, and as Nick pointed out, he does have a father, it is important that we bring in some youth vitality and drive into that portfolio to improve inclusion and diversity, but also understand where affordable housing is and what our empty houses strategy is. So I'm delighted that he accepted that portfolio. And finally, as she proposed me, I better be nice to her too. Rebecca Bean is our newest member of the Cabinet, and she will be involved in borough development and improvement. I think we all recognise that although we are in a great borough, there are things that could be adapted and changed and improved. And I am very happy to welcome Rebecca to that portfolio, and I'm sure that her knowledge of 5G and the infrastructure of the world will help us in driving forward improvement within the council and in the borough. So I recommend all of those to you, and the reasons why are there, I hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Rattigan, and congratulations to all those Cabinet members who I'm sure will do a great job. Moving on now, we have the Officer Scheme of Delegation. All of the work delegated to the various offices in the Council is meticulously explained in our Constitution, and as you know, that Constitution was reviewed only last year, so there are very few and very minor alterations as explained in the report at paragraph 2.3, and they're tracked also on pages 23 to 49 if you want to see them. Are there any comments at all? Can I just move that we accept those then?
Seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Cubitt. Thank you. Allocation of seats of political groups, pages 81 to 84. Obviously, this can rarely be a precise art, but in the paper that you have been given, the update paper is the scheme that gets as close as possible to proportionality, and I believe the party leaders have all been consulted as well. So the Constitution requires us just to confirm these. Can I move that we confirm them?
Seconded.
Thank you. All agreed? Thank you very much. Probably didn't need to do that, did I? Right, appointments to committees. Hopefully this will be a bit easier this year. You'll see on your update and amendment sheet that all parties have handed in their suggestions for committee members and reserves, all according to the proportionality. So can I move this again, that we accept these?
Seconded.
And seconded by Councillor Cubitt. All agreed? Well, we'll be home soon. Right. I think we can... Shall we go home? I think we can now do the same for the committee chairs in that you've got a list of all of the proposed committee chairs on your... Is it on the update and amendment sheet? Yeah. So I assume we've had a chance to look at them all. Unless there's any dissent, can we all agree those? Agreed?
Seconded.
Thank you very much. And as mentioned also, the vice chairs will be appointed at the first committee meeting of the respective committees. Joint bodies, as again, as listed. Are we happy with those? Agreed?
Seconded.
Thank you very much. And Crime and Disorder Joint Scrutiny Committee. Oh, that's both of them. Done that. Right, now we might have a little bit more time to spend on the appointments to outside bodies, which is item 13 on the agenda. So we need to refer to our outside body list at Appendix 3 on the update and amendment sheet. When you found it. Now, what I propose to do to start, Councillor Rattigan.
I have some late changes on the outside appointments, if it would help everybody, just so as we can fill in some of the gaps. On the third one down, Barlow's Park, Management Tadway, Kerry Carruthers would like to be nominated for that. We could go to the Hearst Centre Management Committee, along with Michael Bound. I would like to nominate Councillor Jenny Vaughan. Thank you. Jenny Vaughan. Where are you, Jen? Please smile. So I'm a new councillor, sorry, my apologies. I should have introduced her properly. On Pamber Forest and Local Nature Reserve Advisory Committee, along with Councillor Roger Gardner, Councillor Kerry Carruthers would like to be in that vacant spot. The Vivid, previously Sentinel Housing Association, with Councillor Frost, I would like to nominate Councillor Jenny Vaux. On Silchester Roman Town Advisory Panel, probably most of the people on that are quite old by now, the Romans. Simon Mahaffey as one of our new councillors, so I'd like to nominate him in that slot. Tadway District Community Association Executive Committee, Jenny Vaux would like to add to her considerable load of outside organisations, and that is my additions to that list this evening.
Thank you very much. Now, I will ask, therefore, if there are any people who would like to be nominated also for any of the seats up for grabs. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May I go through the list and then take it from there, because there will be, I suspect, some elections. On Basingstoke and Dean Community Leisure Trust, to nominate Councillor Colin Regan. On the Basingstoke District Sports Trust Limited, to nominate Councillor Jack Cousins. Jack Cousins also for the Basingstoke Citizens Advice third spot. On the Basingstoke Music Festival, Councillors Freeman and McCormick. On the Basingstoke Rape and Sexual Abuse Crisis Centre, Councillor Cooper. The Basingstoke Youth Action Trust Limited, Councillor Taylor, Kim Taylor. On the Everest Community Management Academy Management Group, Councillor Jane Franken. On the Integra North Energy from Waste Plant Liaison Panel, Councillor Keating. On the Laverstoke Free Folk Millennium Green Trust, Councillor Colin Phillimore. On Relate North Hampshire, Mr. Chris Connor. Vivid, for the first and second deputy, depending on what happens.
Sorry, could I just interrupt you? I can't quite keep up with you.
Sorry.
After Councillor Phillimore.
Chris Connor for the Relate North Hampshire.
Relate.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Vivid, Councillor James for the first spot, and also Councillor James for the deputy, if that is required. And finally, Trustees of Basingstoke Charities, Councillor Keating. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so we need to go through some of these and see where we need to do a vote. Are we all happy for Councillor Carruthers to take Barlow's Park, which is one that was mentioned? That's the only nomination. Yes. And for Councillor Regan to take Basingstoke and Dean Community Leisure Trust. Agreed? And for the Basingstoke and District Sports Trust, we have two nominations therefore. We have Councillor Gaskell and Councillor Jack Cousins. So we'll decide this by a show of hands. Can I have a show of hands, first of all, for those in favour of Councillor Gaskell for this post? Thank you. And Councillor Cousins. Finished. Thank you. I think you can put your arms down. Thank you. Councillor Gaskell received 29 votes and Councillor Cousins 25, so the position goes to Councillor Gaskell. Thank you. I'm assuming we're all happy with Councillor Freeman and Councillor McCormack to continue on the Basingstoke Music Festival Committee. Agreed. And for Councillor Cooper to continue on the Basingstoke Rape and Sexual Abuse Crisis Centre. Now, Basingstoke Voluntary Action, we have 2 nominations. One is for Councillor Terry Reid, the other is for Councillor Kim Taylor. So we'll take a vote on that one as we did before. No? Sorry? Yes?
Forgive me, Madam Mayor, Councillor Kim Taylor for the Basingstoke Youth Action Trust Limited.
That saves a vote. Very good. Presumably we're happy, obviously, with Councillor Jane Frankham and Councillor Paul Miller continuing on Everest. The Hurst, Hampshire, we haven't got any nominations for Hampshire Building and Preservation Trust. I'm assuming that there's nobody who's putting themselves up for that one at all. No? Okay. The Hurst Centre, we have 2 vacancies and 2 nominations, so we're happy with Councillors Bound and Vokes. Vokes? Thank you. Integra North Energy, Councillor Keating, happy with that. And Laverstoke and Free Folk Millennium Green Trust, we're happy with Councillor Phillimore to continue with that. Thank you. Just shout if you're not happy. Pamber Forest Local Nature Reserve, 2 vacancies, and we have Councillor Gardner and Councillor Carruthers. Yes? Relate North Hampshire, we've got 2 places and we have 2 nominations, so that's fine. Councillor Simon Bound and Councillor Connor.
Mr. Chris Connor.
Oh, sorry, yes, Mr. Chris Connor. Sorry. Mr. Chris Connor, as before. Vivid. We have Councillor Frost and we have Councillor Jenny Vaux for the 2 spaces.
And Councillor James and Councillor James.
And Councillor James and Councillor... Okay, very good. So we need to have a vote for this. I think we will have to just have a straightforward vote, a show of hands per person. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes,
I think there's one vote for a person, I think 1 vote for a deputy, because they're slightly different. It's not 2 spaces.
Thank you very much. We better vote for the positions first then before we vote for the deputy. So can I have a show of hands for Councillor Frost to be a member? Thank you very much. Can you all raise your hands, please, for Councillor James? Okay, thank you. Sorry. Right. Councillor Frost had...
Sorry.
Thank you very much. Councillor Frost had 29 votes and Councillor James 25, so the seat goes to Councillor Frost. And now it just remains to have the deputy's seat, which is between Councillor James and Councillor Vokes. Okay? So can we have a show of hands, please, for Councillor James? Is that right? Yeah. Thank you. And for Councillor Vokes, and forgive me if I'm pronouncing your name wrongly. Thank you. Councillor James had 25 votes and Councillor Vox had 29. So the deputy goes to Jenny Vox. Thank you. Silchester Roman Town Advisory, that is just one nomination, so that's for Councillor Mahaffey. Tadleian District Community Association, just one, so that's Jenny Vokes. Trustees of Basingstoke Charities. I just need some advice on this one, just a moment. I'm delighted to say that we have 4 people and 4 spaces, so that is fine. Are there any other comments or any other suggestions, or are we happy with those outside body places? Happy? Thank you very much. We move on to item 14, which is questions from members of the public. And could I invite Mr. Carl Blackmore Squires, who wishes to address the new chair of the Community Enterprise and Partnerships Committee. Thank you, Mr. Blackmore Squires.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, councillors. I'm Carl Blackmore Squires and I'm representing...
Can you put your microphone on, sorry?
It's on. Yeah, the light's on. Good evening, Madam Mayor and councillors. I'm Carl Blackmore Squires and I'm representing the Ice Users Forum this evening and asked me to ask this question. The survey commissioned by this council on the condition of the ice rink building will be presented to the CEP committee on the 19th of June. The purpose of the report was to determine what could be done to encourage standard securities and therefore Planet Ice to carry out necessary repairs identified. At no point prior to the commissioning of this report was the group or any of the rink users consulted as to what was important to them. The actual users of the building with regard to its continued safe usability for them and their families. With respect to the officers of this council and the surveyors they have engaged, they can measure angles of lean and work out safe loadings for stands, but this may not have addressed the real concerns of the people that use the facility. It is with this in mind that we request that this report is not presented to the CEP committee on pink papers, but that the report is presented in an open and transparent way so that the users of the facility can be reassured of their concerns have been addressed. Can the new chair of the CEP committee please confirm this will be the case?
Thank you very much. Councillor Gaskell, do you want to reply or do you want to reserve? Okay.
That's awesome. Okay, so, well, I was going to apologise because I've only been CP chair for 20 minutes, so I've not had a chance to digest any documents. I have read your email though, and it sort of highlights you have some concerns over safety. Can I ask you to collate those concerns and pass them on to us? Because I've not yet read the report, so I need to look at that, and I will make sure they're covered. So anything to do with safety, then we need to know about it. It'd be useful if you could get all your colleagues' thoughts together and send them in one go so we can keep track of it. I'm very keen on this position, and I'm very keen as a user of ice rink in Basingstoke to make it work. So I can promise you I will do my best to make sure this happens, but at the moment I'm just not in a position to answer you fully. Can I pass this over to John, is it? For further, can I pass it over to John? Yeah.
Yes, please do. Councillor Isaac.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, and may I take the opportunity of wishing you a very successful time as Mayor. Mr. Blackmore Squires, in response to your question, the Commission Building Condition Survey is a report carried out by external property and construction consultants and carried out in accordance with professional standards. it was not appropriate for the council to consult on the terms of this survey or to influence the scope of the inspection. The buildings condition survey relating to the ice rink pertains to the business of Planet Ice and SSL, who are the long leaseholder, as you know, and therefore it is appropriate that their consent should be sought to its disclosure in the forthcoming CEP report. Should either the lessee, that's Planet Ice, or the head lessee's SSL raise an objection on grounds of commercial confidentiality, then the council will need to consider the terms of this request and whether it is established so as to prohibit the release of this report into the public domain. The council has written to these parties, following your question, asking for consent to release the report to the public domain. If this is forthcoming, then the report will not be an exempt appendix to the CEP report, but available to the public. And that would certainly be my hope and expectation that would be the case. And to your point about any questions that you have that you don't feel have been covered by the report, then of course it is open to us as a council to go back to the consultants to address those points specifically for you. We've got nothing to hide on this. We want to, like you, have as full a picture of the condition of the ice rink as possible. I'd also like to take the opportunity just to say to you that because I know that there's a lot going on in the Twitter sphere and so forth about the future of the ice rink, that this administration is completely committed to providing a new ice rink. It is estimated, the officers' initial estimates are that to give a new ice rink of the standard and capacity required, that would do justice to our borough, it could cost up to £12 million, which is a significant sum of money, as you appreciate. And what I would say to you is that it is only through the ambitious proposals that we have for the redevelopment of the leisure park as a whole that there's a possibility, that the possibility is there for us to provide that new facility for the borough. And I think the point I would make is that the strength of our intentions about a new ice rink is demonstrated by the fact that it was specifically written into the development agreement all those years ago when we started the process with New River. So to suggest that we're not doing everything we can to to bring forward a new ice rink, I'd like to just reassure you that that's unfounded. Then can I also, because another big issue is the question of a temporary ice rink, that we have said as a council that we are going to do everything we can to provide...
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Councillor Isaac, but you are rather going off-piste. If you could just confine your answer to the question that was asked, I'd be very grateful, please.
Fine, okay.
Thank you.
I will obviously accord with your wishes, Madam Mayor, and I will leave it at that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have a supplementary that you'd just like to ask? Thank you.
I do, yes, thank you. Okay, during the last council meeting, a stakeholder meeting was discussed related to the ice rink. Given that an engaged and interested representative of the town council will have listened to the requests from the public and a meeting will have already been scheduled, could we ask the council to arrange a meeting for all the stakeholders, please?
Now we've got the business of elections out of the way, and I am resuming my role as the cabinet member responsible for this. I would be delighted to have a further meeting with you and hear further concerns and to provide you with reassurance, not least on the on our commitment to help you find a temporary ice rink site if that's required. Okay.
Thank you very much to all three of you. Thank you. Right, moving on, we have no petitions tonight. So item 16 is a recommendation, arrangements for dealing with complaints against councillors on pages 89 to 96. Just to note that this proposal is in line with recommendations of the Local Government Ethical Standards Report, and it's simply related to the and making the terms of office of the ISAs and IPs 2 years. Has anybody got any problem with any of that? I beg your pardon. Councillor Putty, would you like to say something?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And again, congratulations to you and your deputy there. It's just that I just wanted to move the recommendations, but you have already done that. And those two things that we discussed at the committee meeting on the 27th of March 2019, that the term of office for the independent standard assessors be set to at 2 years with 1 2-year period of extension, and the term of independent persons be set to 2 years and 1 2-year period extension. So I move it.
I'll second that. Can we all agree to that? Yes? Thank you very much. Now we come to the motion, which is... Oh, I'm so sorry. I beg your pardon. We've got a very important matter before then, item 17, the adoption of the local development scheme, the local plan review, founding on pages 97 to 124. This will be Councillor Offell, pleased to introduce.
Well, Madam Mayor, I've addressed your predecessor many times in the last year, and always with pleasure. And it is a pleasure to address you, Madam Mayor, but not necessarily on this item, I'm afraid. Unfortunately, we are kicking off the review of the local plan. And I thought it might be a good idea just to remind members of the excitement we had over many years with the last local plan. We had to go through the process of looking at housing number. And just for those who are slightly newer to the chamber will remember that the Conservatives started with a very low figure and then had a slightly higher figure. And Labour had no figure throughout the whole process, but we knew what John Prescott's figure was, which was about 940, and the Liberal Democrats did the classic of being somewhere in between, and as it turned out, got it right, as Councillor James would no doubt tell us. Well,
Over and over again.
over and over again, as he did at the time. I suspect that we won't be disappointed with the fact that the Conservatives will do their best to start with a low figure, despite what the government wants us to do is start with a high figure. And the Liberal Democrats will wait for a bit and try and find a figure somewhere in between. The Labour figure, which of course is somewhere in the upper stratosphere, which we never find out what it is again. So the housing number is going to be something that we've got to look at pretty soon. And we're required to do this because the government decided in its great wisdom that even though we've got a nice local plan that we're all very happy with in general terms, that it should be reviewed within 5 years. And that 5 years runs out in May of 2021. And so we have to look at the methodology for calculating housing need. And of course, the government has changed the methodology from having a methodology originally that was bottom-up, evidence-based, and you can imagine I quite enjoyed that because we could look at the evidence, evaluate it, and work out whether it had merit, and put a forceful case before an inspector, and we did last time, and we got a bit of nudging, and we got to a figure that 2/3 of the chamber agreed on the last occasion. So the government's changed the methodology. It's very strange, as you've all noted, because I know some of you are real whizzes at working out what's going on. And the answer has been described for us, and the way to get there is the problem the government have got. Because so they basically said, as far as I can work out, 300,000 new houses need to be built, but it hasn't quite worked out how to get the methodology working for Basingstoke and Dean to pump out a figure that actually, when it's equated nationally, gets to 300,000. So what it has done is it started off with some methodology based on affordability. And the affordability factors were that, just to take an example, Basingstoke and Dean was slightly more affordable for people trying to get on the housing ladder than Hart District, which was slightly less affordable. So when they put the numbers in, that meant that Hart District's numbers of new houses went down, even though it was less affordable, and ours went up, even though it was more affordable. So that didn't work, and I wrote a stinky letter to the Secretary of State, didn't get a reply on your behalf, and then some new methodology came along, which relied on statistics for 2014 that seemed to suggest that the housing number might be in the region, I think, of 974 or some number like that. And that was all going fine for the government, they thought, until they decided to put the 2016 statistics into the same methodology, which resulted in the figure coming down by 25%. to around 700 to 750, that sort of area. Of course, joy, oh joy, that would be great, because they didn't like that, and they said that there must be something wrong in 2016. We could probably think of a number of things that may not have happened in 2016 or did happen in 2016, but whether they're related to the housing number or affordability in this borough, I doubt it. And as a consequence, they've now gone back to 2014 figures because they quite like them. Meanwhile, we know in this process, between now and 2021, we're going to get figures for 2018 and 2020. And if we keep it going long enough, we might get more. So the result of that is that we can't actually say at the current moment what the outcome is going to be. So, members of EPH, Councillor Frost, good luck. You are going to have to wrestle with the methodology. We're going to have to, as cabinet and as a committee, work through how the methodology works and work through the factors that will input into that to come to a housing figure. And whilst that is going on, which will happen sometime in the next 12 to 18 months, whilst that is all going on, and we're waiting for the government to decide where it's going with its policies on this, and who will be leading the government, and all sorts of other exciting things that are going on, as we know. In the meantime, we will have before us to consider the call for sites that will be issued in the next 3 or 4 weeks across the borough. So brace yourselves, that the excitement is coming our way, and there are parts of the borough that will no doubt be very unhappy with what is about to happen, because sites will come forward and they'll have to be assessed in a SHLAR, or SHILAR, as it's now called. It might be something else by next year. And that assessment process will take place by the end of the year, no doubt. And then we'll be looking at where that will take us. So, all joy for all of you. I can tell you that I remain committed, as I was in the last process, of bringing this all to committee. There are many things that we did at committee that were jolly good, and that the Labour Party in particular joined in with and got a lot of what they wanted in the policies. In fact, even if they wanted 50% affordable housing, we settled for 40%. They said it wouldn't get ever delivered, and it is being delivered. And I think at the end of the day, they're probably pleased with the efforts they put into that, and I hope they feel that we were listening and trying to get a broad consensus across the borough for that. And I said at the time, and I'll reiterate it again, despite the fact that we're reviewing this rather too swiftly, that the local plan is to last for a lengthy period of time, and political power does move. It may not have just moved, but it does move, and therefore it's got to work across the political parties for whatever might happen in the future. So it is important that I maintain this stance, that we listen to what other parties say, and I know that at committee actually are generally very good at scrutinising the evidence that's put forward before the committee. One of the factors that I noticed in the last local plan was that the opposition parties were often saying that we perhaps hadn't taken account of enough employment land in the borough. And that resonated with me, and I hope that we will be looking at trying to find more employment land in the borough in the course of this review, because I think it is important that we are making available land so that we can have employment within the borough, especially in making things, not just
your time's nearly up, I'm afraid.
Other businesses. So the long and short of it is, it's excitement, it is joy, but I don't feel it. And I recommend this to all of us, and the starting gun is now fired if you say yes. You could say no, actually, but I don't think that would be very helpful.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Fell. So that counts as a proposal that we do approve. Reluctantly, you're proposing that we approve the local development scheme for publication. Do we have somebody to second that reluctant proposal? Yes, Councillor Miller. Do you wish to speak at all? Do we have anybody else who wishes to say anything? No, there's a sad silence, isn't there? Shall we all reluctantly agree? Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Agreed. Now moving on to the motion, which, Councillor Harvey, is it still as on the paper? In that case, I will just have to have a little preamble, if you'll bear with me while I just explain one or two things. As most of you might already know, I've received the monitoring officer's advice in the discharge of her statutory duty that the motion on the agenda paper, with its present wording, is unlawful. I'll read out the reasons for this as expressed by our monitoring officer. So I'm quoting her. The motion put forward by Councillors Harvey and Taylor, if carried, suggests that the Council will be committed to ensuring the delivery of an ice rink on both a permanent and a temporary basis, due to the use of the words "is unequivocally committed to." This would require a significant financial commitment to be made by the Council without full details of the implications, particularly of the cost, but also the viability, and whether or not such temporary and permanent provision could be delivered in practice, and whether it would be affordable. Officers have advised that the financial commitment could be in the order of £10 to £12 million to fund a permanent ice rink, and £3 to £4 million to fund a temporary rink, capable of lasting for several years. It is necessary for the Council to undertake proper due diligence on the affordability, viability and deliverability of a permanent and temporary ice rink for the expenditure to be lawful. If carried, such an unlawful motion would be in breach of the Council's fiduciary duty to Council taxpayers, and such decision could be open to legal challenge. The developer, New River, is under no contractual obligation to deliver an ice rink in the development agreement that the Council has entered into. The Council has received external legal advice from Mr. Ree QC, suggesting that the Council's funding of such facilities could amount to unlawful state aid, where the benefit of such funding would go to the developer, the club or an operator. Councillor Harvey has been advised by the monitoring officer in 3 separate emails to amend the motion to remove the unequivocal nature of the commitment and to allow the Chamber therefore to debate the future of the ice rink, but he has not submitted an amended motion. That's the end of what our monitoring officer has said. Just 1 moment. From me, I'm sure you'll understand that with such clear legal advice, I have to accept that advice and rule the motion as it stands on the order paper is not lawful. However, I think we're all agreed it would be good to debate the future of the ice rink and to give members all round the Chamber an opportunity to express their support for an ongoing ice rink in Basingstoke. So can I ask Councillor Harvey again if he would consider amending the motion so that such a debate can take place? And for the benefit of members and visitors, suggested wording might be as follows. Basingstoke and Deane Borough Council would like to see the provision of a new ice rink as a part of its and its partner New River Retail plans for a new leisure park, a rink big enough to accommodate the Basingstoke Bison. In the short to medium term, the Council will also provide support with a view to facilitating the provision of a temporary ice rink in the borough. Right, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I mean, on a point of order in terms of personal clarification as the mover of the motion, I'm grateful to you for your consideration of the motion, and we have actually tabled it. I also respect your judgment in this and the advice you've been given by officers. I'd like to thank our officers for their advice on this matter, but we feel very strongly about this in the public interest. May I ask you to consider, in reaching your decision, that we have attempted to be definite, to be certain in our language, and it is that certainty that has caused the issue. Amendments that change the context of the motion to a maybe, a we'd like to see, and if we can, a possibly if things allow, make the point for us. I'd like to thank the officers and yourself for clarifying that there is no contractual obligation from New River Retail to deliver an ice rink. This runs counter to the public statements that have been issued by the Cabinet member today in the press and raises important questions over what else has been omitted from that development agreement. If the fundamental provision of a new ice rink is not what were Montague Evans promoting all those years ago that led to the deal with New River Retail missing out.
Councillor Harvey, I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but once again, I think we're going slightly off piece. The question to you is, are you prepared to amend the motion?
And I'm explaining myself, Madam Mayor.
Well, it's a yes or no.
Well, the motion is only indicative, Madam Mayor. I'm asking you to consider the arguments I'm making to you.
Well, if the motion is as on our order papers, we have already said it's unlawful, so we won't be debating it.
The unlawfulness, Madam Mayor, reminds me of the Manydown. When we were
Well,
advised on the Manydown motion of
We're
its
not,
unlawfulness,
we are
this
not
council chamber
debating it,
approved.
Councillor Harvey. I'm sorry about that, because obviously we would like to debate it, but if we have decided, or I have decided, that it's unlawful, then we can't go into this discussion. I understand your passion about this.
Yeah, we all have passion.
And I would be happy for you to meet outside of this meeting, and we can discuss it with our officers and perhaps come to a way forward, because there's going to be other council meetings when we can talk about it again.
Can I
It's
ask you
also going to CEP in June, and so this is still very much open for discussion, and we'd all like to do it, but not in the form it is now. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to close down this discussion.
For the record, Madam Mayor, I'm not challenging your decision. What I'm asking you to do, if you can for me, so it's on the record, is to clarify under what constitutional provision, Madam Mayor, are you being advised that you would strike it off the motion as it was accepted on the order paper and it was published. If we could just have that for the record, I would be grateful. And in terms of the arguments that are being used to say that it is unlawful, we believe they are advice given, but they are challengeable, and we do challenge them because we have a different view of that, particularly around the state aid point, where it was described previously when we did the proposal for the hotel on Basing View, that the state aid was argued then that it was okay.
Thank you. Can I intervene
I
again?
respect your position, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. I hear your point. We've heard your point. We have deemed it unlawful, and in our constitution, therefore, at paragraph 8.14, we can't proceed with it. Having said that, we will obviously meet again and we'll find a way forward on this. And I do hope also that people listening do understand that this is in no way to give the impression that we're not willing to really push forward on trying to get an ice rink in this town. I think I can probably speak for most members and say that's a desire of all of us. But we have to find a lawful way of doing it, and we will work towards that. And as I said, there's opportunity at CEP for this to be aired again in June, and we have other council meetings at which we can talk it through, but it has to be with a lawful motion on the table. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May I ask for the clarification under what part of the Constitution it is? And may I also ask for clarification in terms of what's been said tonight on the development agreement? You made it very clear that it's not part contractually of the New Rivers development agreement. We have a different statement from the Cabinet member. If you can't deal with that tonight, can that be dealt with outside of this publicly and transparently and openly? Because I do feel that is an important point.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask one of our officers to repeat what I've said and just reassure you that it is within our constitution to do this. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, it does not need to be in the Constitution. It's a point of law. If my opinion is that it's incurring this council in illegal expenditure, then that is my advice, and it would not be sensible for the council to proceed in the circumstances. If I can deal with the other point as well on the development agreement, it is indeed in the development agreement that there should be an ice rink provided that it is viable within the terms of the development.
Thank you very much. So you may have another interpretation of the law, but we're obviously not going to be debating this tonight. So we may well return to this, but thank you, everyone. We'll now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is questions, and we haven't received any notice of questions. So we'll move on to item 20, which is questions to the Chair of Committee or Cabinet in relation to the minutes. There are minutes on 7 meetings listed. Do we have any questions? And if you do, can you state exactly which page it refers to? Any questions on any of those minutes that are listed? No? Okay. Goodness me. In that case, I think we have probably concluded our business for tonight. Thank you very much indeed.